Neville Goddard, The Law and the Promise, Chapter 3, Turn the Wheel Backward. Oh, let your strong imagination turn the great wheel backward until Troy unburn. All life is, throughout the ages, nothing but the continuing solution of a continuous synthetic problem. H.G. Wells. The perfectly stable or static state is always unattainable. The end attained objectively always realizes more than the end the individual originally had in view. This, in turn, creates a new situation of inner conflict, needing novel solutions to force man along the path of creative evolution. His touch is infinite and lends a yonder to all ends. Today's events are bound to disturb yesterday's established order. The creatively active imagination invariably unsettles a pre-existing peace of mind. Very true. The creatively active imagination is definitely going to disturb the apple cart because it's going to think of new ways. The question may arise as to how, by representing others to ourselves as better than they really were, or mentally rewriting a letter to make it conform to our wish, or by revising the scene of an accident, the interview with the employer, and so on, could change what seems to be the unalterable facts of the past. But remember, my claims for imagining. Imagining creates reality. Imagining creates reality. Period. If you're here on this channel, you have to understand that that is the facts, Jack. Imagining creates reality. Everything you want to do when it comes to manifesting or creating for yourself or making your life better or revising your past to make it better, everything has to do with that one red pill right there. Imagining creates reality is the baseline of everything you're going to do with this knowledge. A lot of responsibility, I know, but the sooner you can understand that one and accept it, the sooner you're going to get on with the killing here. You're going to kill it. You're just going to kill it, meaning you're going to get everything you want. Literally. Literally. What it makes, it can unmake the imagination. It is not only conservative, building a life from images supplied by memory, it is also creatively transformative, altering a theme already in being. The parable of the unjust steward gives the answer to this question. We can alter our world by means of a certain illegal imaginal practice, by means of a mental falsification of the facts. That is, by means of a certain intentional, imaginal alteration of that which we have experienced. All this is done in one's own imagination. This is a form of falsehood which not only is not condemned, but is actually approved in the gospel teaching. By means of such a falsehood, a man destroys the causes of evil and acquires friends, and on the strength of this revision proves, judging by the high praise the unjust steward received from his master, that he is deserving of confidence. Because imagining creates reality, we can carry revision to the extreme and revise a scene that would be otherwise unforgivable. We learn to distinguish between man, who is all imagination, and those states into which he may enter. An unjust steward looking at another's distress will represent the other to himself as he ought to be seen. Let me repeat that sentence. An unjust steward looking at another's distress. Remember, you're going to go pour the oil on the wounds. An unjust steward looking at another's distress will represent the other to himself as he ought to be seen. Were he himself in need, he would enter his dream in his imagination and imagine what he would see and how things would seem and how people would act. After these things should be, then in this state he would fall asleep, feeling the way he would expect to feel under such circumstances. Would that all the Lord's people were unjust stewards, mentally falsifying the facts of life to deliver individuals forevermore. That would be amazing. We would all be lifting each other up. I want to be a pilot. Great, you're a pilot. I see you flying the most wonderful planes. I want to be a fighter pilot in the Navy. Oh, that's amazing. I see you as a fighter pilot in the Navy. You're going to do such an amazing, incredible job. You're going to love it. I'm glad to see you at what you want to be. For the imaginal change goes forward until at length the altered pattern is realized on the heights of attainment. Our future is our imaginal activity in its creative march. Our future is our imaginal activity in its creative march. Imagine better than the best you know. Very, very important sentence. To revise the past is to reconstruct it with new content. Man should daily relive the day as he wished he had lived it, revising the scenes to make them conform to his ideals. For instance, suppose today's mail brought disappointing news. Revise the letter. Mentally rewrite it and make it conform to the news you wish you had received. Then, in imagination, read the revised letter over and over again, and this will arouse the feelings of naturalness. And imaginal acts become facts as soon as we feel natural in the act. It's all right there. Mentally rewrite it. It doesn't matter if it's a letter or if it's a scene that you were experiencing with somebody, with your ex, with your current, with whatever. Mentally rewrite it and make it conform to the news you wish you had received. Then, in imagination, read the revised letter over and over again. Replay the revised scene over and over again. It's the same thing. And this will arouse the feeling of naturalness. And imaginal acts become facts as soon as we feel natural in the act. Once it feels natural and normal. This is the essence of revision, and revision results in repeal. This is exactly what FB did. Here's FB's testimonial. Late in July, I wrote to a real estate agent of my desire to sell a piece of land which had been a financial burden to me. His negative reply listed all the reasons why sales were at a standstill in that area, and he forecast a bleak period of waiting until after the first of the year. I received his letter on a Tuesday, and in my imagination, I rewrote it with words indicating that the agent was eager to take my listing. I read this revised letter over and over again, and I extended my imaginal drama using your theme of the four mighty ones of our imagination. Remember, the producer, the author, the director, the actor. From your book, Seed Time and Harvest. The producer, the author, the director, and the actor. Excuse me. I don't really ever read ahead. In my imaginal scene as a producer, I suggested the theme, the lot is sold for a profit. As the author, I wrote this simple scene which to me implied fulfillment. Standing in the real estate office, I extended my hand to the agent and said, "Thank you, sir." And he replied, "It was a pleasure doing business with you." As director, I rehearsed myself as actor until that scene was vividly real. And I felt the relief which would be mine if the burden was really lifted. 3 days later, the agent I had originally written phoned me saying he had a deposit for my lot at the price I had specified. I signed the papers in his office the next day, extended my hand and said, "Thank you, sir." Then the agent replied, "It was a pleasure doing business with you." 5 days later, I had constructed and enacted an imaginal scene. It became a physical reality and was played word for word just as I had heard it in my imagination. The feeling of relief and joy came not so much from selling the property, but from the incontrovertible proof my imagined drama worked. Incontrovertible proof that my imagined drama worked. Wonderful testimonial. If the thing accomplished were all, how futile. But FB discovered a power within himself that can consciously create circumstances. This is what we're doing here together. We are discovering the power and we're going to wield it consciously for ourselves. We're going to benefit everybody in our life tremendously when we become conscious co-creators with all that is God I am. That's what we are doing here together. By mentally falsifying the facts of life, man moves from passive reaction to active creation. This breaks the wheel of recurrence and builds a cumulatively enlarging future. If man does not always create in the full sense of the word, it is because he is not faithful to his vision, or else he thinks of what he wants rather than from his wish fulfilled. Man is such an extraordinary synthesis, partly tied by his senses and partly free to dream, that his internal conflicts are perennial. The state of conflict in the individual is expressed in society. Life is a romantic adventure. To live creatively, imagining novel solutions to ever more complex problems, is far nobler to restrain or kill out desire. Life is a romantic adventure. Let me repeat. To live creatively, imagining novel solutions to ever more complex problems, is far nobler than to restrain or kill our desire. All that is desired can be imagined into existence. All that is desired can be imagined into existence. Wouldst thou be in a dream and yet not sleep? Try to revise your day every night before falling asleep. Try to visualize clearly and enter into the revised scene, which would be the imaginal solution of your problem. The revised imaginal structure may have a great influence on others, but that is not your concern. You must put this to work, put it to practice. It's not your concern upon whomever else it has an impact. We are trying to get this practice moving. The revised imaginal structure may have a great influence on others. Of course, we know it's going to, but that is not your concern, all right? Put that aside for now. We want to get this working and understand the processes here. The other influenced in the following story is profoundly grateful for that influence. LSE, the initials, writes the following. Last August, while on a blind date, I met the man I wanted to marry. This happens sometimes, and it happened to me. He was everything I had ever thought of as desirable in a husband. 2 days after this enchanted evening, it was necessary for me to change my place of residence because of my work. And that same week, the mutual friend who had introduced me to this man moved away from the city. I realized that the man I had met probably did not know my address, and frankly, I was not sure he knew my name. After your last lecture, I spoke to you of this situation. Although I had plenty of other dates, I could not forget this one man. Your lecture was based on revising our day. And after speaking to you, I determined to revise my day every day. Before going to sleep that night, I felt I was in a different bed in my home as a married woman and not as a single working girl, sharing an apartment with 3 other girls. I twisted an imaginary wedding band on my imaginary left hand here, saying over and over to myself, this is wonderful. I really am Mrs. J.E. And I fell asleep in what was, a moment before, a waking dream. I repeated this imaginary scene for 1 month, night after night. Okay, 1 month. What is that? 4 1/3 weeks, technically on the calendar. 4 1/3 weeks, 1 month. She repeated this 4 weeks. How long would you repeat an imaginary scene to get your desire? Do you desire to be married? Do you desire to be out of debt? No debt? Own a house? Do you desire to be healthy? Skipping along on the sidewalk like you did when you were a kid? What is your desire? Are you willing to put in 4 weeks of falling asleep with the imagined scene on your mind as you drift into sleep? Are you willing to do that much work? That doesn't sound like a lot of work. I repeated this imaginary scene for 1 month, night after night. The first week in October, he found me. On our second date, I knew my dreams were rightly placed. Your teaching tells us to live in the end of our desire until that desire becomes fact. So although I did not know how he felt towards me, I continued night after night, living in the feeling of my dream realized. The results. In November, he proposed. In January, we announced our engagement, and the following May, we were married. The loveliest part of it all, however, is that I am happier than I've ever dreamed possible. And I know in my heart, he is too. Mrs. J.E. That is a wonderful, wonderful testimonial. Oh my gosh. Do not give up. Do not stop. Continue, persist, consistently, persistently. Keep at it. By using her imagination radically instead of conservatively, by building her world out of pure dreams of fancy, rather than using images supplied by memory, she brought about the fulfillment of her dream. Common sense would have used images supplied by her memory and thereby perpetuated the fact of lack in her life. That's common sense. We don't want to be involved in common sense. Common sense is out here in the world. Imagination created what she desired out of a dream of fancy. Everyone must live wholly on the level of imagination, and it must be consciously and deliberately undertaken. Lovers and madmen have such seething brains, such shaping fantasies that apprehend more than cool reason over comprehends. If our time in revision be well spent, we need not worry about results. Our fondest hopes will be realized. Art thou real, earth? Am I? In whose dream do we exist? That is very, very true. Just sit with that for a minute. Art that real, earth? Am I? In whose dream do we exist? I ask you to ask that. In whose dream do we exist? I'll put it forth just for the fun of it. I and my Father are one. My Father is greater than I. We are the dreaming selves of the dreamer. The dreamer and the dream are one. The dreamer is greater than the dream. You're only in a dream. Why not imagine? If this is a dream anyway, a waking dream that you claim as your awake self, and then you talk about your dreaming self as if it's crazy, while you're there, you're pointing at this waking self as the dream. Where's the dream? Just because you think you're awake, it's not a dream? Oh, I'm here to tell you, it's definitely a dream. So go ahead and dream big, dream nobly, then imagine it as you're falling asleep back to your other dreaming self. I don't want to muddy the waters too greatly here, but the dreams are important. Dream big, imagine the dream as a real fact as you're falling asleep. Simple, simple, simple. In whose dream do we exist? There is no inevitable permanence in anything. Both past and present continue to exist only because they are sustained by imagining on some level or other. And a radical transformation of life is always possible by man revising the undesirable part of it. Beautiful. Soak that one in. In his letter, Mr. R.S. questions this subject of influence. During your current series of lectures, trouble developed with collections on one of my trust deeds. The security, a house and lot, was neglected and run down. The owners were apparently spending their money in bars while their two little girls, aged 9 and 11, were noticeably uncared for. However, forgetting appearances, I began to revise the situation. In my imagination, I drove my wife past the property and said to her, "Isn't the yard beautiful? It's so neat and well cared for. Those people really show love for their home. This is one trust deed we will never have to worry about." I would see the house and lot as I wanted to see it. A place so lovely it gave me a warm glow of pleasure. Every time the thought of this property came to me, I repeated my imaginal scene. Even every time he came to it, not just driving by it. After I had been practicing this revision for some time, the woman who lived in the house had an automobile accident. While she was in the hospital, her husband disappeared. The children were cared for by neighbors, and I was tempted to visit the mother in the hospital to reassure her of assistance, if necessary. But how could I, when my imaginary scene implied that she and her family were happy, successful, and obviously contented? Then why would he go confirm the opposite? So I did nothing but my daily revision. He continued. He didn't go try and trouble at whatever the scab was or the wound. He went ahead and did the revision and continued in the revision, pouring oil over the wounds. So I did nothing but my daily revision. A short while after leaving the hospital, the woman and her two daughters disappeared also. Payments were sent in on the property, and a few months later, she reappeared with a wedding certificate and a new husband. At this writing, all payments are right up to date. The two little girls are obviously happy and well cared for, and a room has been added to the property by the owners, giving our trust deed additional security. It was mighty nice to solve my problem without threats, unkind words, eviction, or worry about the little girls. But was there something in my imagining that sent that woman to the hospital? R.S. That is a good question, and we often feel heavily responsible as we take on this mode of activity. We feel heavily responsible. Oh my, what if I imagine something and it becomes negative to somebody else? That is an immediate thought. It was to me. I don't know about you. That definitely traveled through me, and I had to wrestle that one. I had to wrestle it and wrestle and wrestle it, because that's the way I'm made up. It may not be the same for you. That's how it worked out with me. The tough one to wrestle. So let's hear what Neville says. Any imaginal activity acquiring intensity through our concentrated attention to clarity of the end desired tends to overflow into regions beyond where we are. Let me repeat. Any imaginal activity acquiring intensity through our concentrated attention to clarity of the end desired tends to overflow into regions beyond where we are. But we must leave it to take care of such imaginal activity itself. Never be concerned with the how. Period. It's all a dream. It's all a dream. Don't be concerned with the how in your dream. It is marvelously resourceful in adapting and adjusting means to realize itself. There it is. Once we think in terms of influence rather than of clarity of the end desired, the effort of imagination becomes an effort of will. And the great art of imagining is perverted into tyranny. You don't want to go that direction. The buried past usually lies deeper than our surface mind can plumb. Oh boy. But fortunately for this lady, she remembered and proved that the made past can also be unmade through revision. Talking about this next testimonial here. For 39 years, I had suffered from a weak back. The pain would increase and decrease, but would never leave completely. The condition had progressed to the point where I used medical treatment almost constantly. The doctor would put the hip right for a moment, but the pain would simply not go away. Let me repeat the sentence. I want to clean it up. The condition had progressed to the point where I used medical treatment almost constantly. The doctor would put the hip right for the moment, but the pain would simply not go away. One night I heard you speak of revision and wondered to myself if a condition of almost 40 years could be revised. I had remembered that at the age of 3 or 4 years, I had fallen backward from a very high swing and had been quite ill at that time because of a serious hip injury. From that time on, I had never been completely free from pain and had paid many a dollar to alleviate the condition to no avail. This year, during the month of August, the pain had become more intense, and one night I decided to test myself and attempt to revise that ancient accident which had been the cause of so much distress in pain and costly medical fees most of my adult life. Many nights passed before I could feel myself back to the age of childhood play. Many nights. How much effort would you put in? It took many nights for her to focus and revise and just get the practice moving, prime the pump, get the imagination moving. It took many nights passed before I could feel myself back to the age of childhood play. She's just trying to get to the age, first of all, for crying out loud. It could take you a minute or two. It's okay. Persist, persist, persist. This is probably one of the most important chapters we are covering in all this work. It is called, as a reminder, Turn the Wheel Backwards. Chapter 3, Law and the Promise. But I succeeded. One night I actually felt myself on the swing, feeling the rush of wind as the swing rose higher and higher. As the swing slowed down, I jumped forward, landing solidly and easily on my feet. In the imaginal action, I ran to my mother and insisted that she come watch what I could do. I did it again, jumping down from the swing and landing safely on my 2 feet. I repeated this imaginal act over and over until I fell asleep in the doing of it. Within 2 days, the pain in my back and hip began to recede, and within 2 months, pain no longer existed for me. A condition that had plagued me for more than 39 years, that had cost a small fortune in attempted cure, was no more. Signed, L.H. Everything happening is in your imagination, period. Remember, the present is your now. This is the only moment of power, where all the power is in your present. This little bubble over here, called your future, this little bubble over here, called your past, these are both illusions. They are illusions that we tend to invest in, especially when the past bubble of illusion seems to have put us into the current state we are in. It could be a self-concept. You could claim in your self-concept where you have limitations that you believe exist, you can claim that the past did it to you, thereby claiming victimship. And when you're in victimship, you're not really able to use your power a whole lot because you're giving away your power, which is here. You're giving it away to an illusion that exists out here. Out here. This gal, this lady, took her power back and practiced revision. She practiced until she could feel herself on that swing. I've done this with my childhood. I didn't even know it was important to do it, but I just started doing it, and I started to see some amazing, amazing imaginal scenes. My story has some tragedy and some trauma, and I just took these things for facts. I took these experiences for facts. I took them as my makeup, but I didn't realize until I revised myself personally that I could change the dynamic of what I was experiencing, of what I was actually having as a flexibility in nature, I guess. I thought it was a doom. I thought it was in myself personally, I can only speak for me. I thought I was being forced down this certain drain, this hole, that I couldn't do anything about it. Revision is the key. It is the key that will set you free. Anything that you, anything you think happened here didn't. You only think it happened here. You think it happened. So if you revise, you change completely what exists here. The contents of it changes. It changes you here, which changes you here. Then you go on to revise and you go on to make that impression. Then you get the new expression. This is how imagination works, and we will master this together. This is my promise. My promise to you. We will lick this. But it is not as difficult as it seems. It only seems difficult because of habits. Habits of where you spend your time in your mind. But now you're going to spend it here in your present moment where all your power is. You're going to use that present moment and you're going to make the impression that you want to make. You will move the needle and you will become the expression of what you want to be. I am not married. I am single. I am not in a relationship. I want to be in a relationship. I want to be married. I want to have a family. I want to buy a new house. I want to have a wonderful career. Everything you want is available because of your imagination. It is how you use it that matters. We are going to become conscious co-creators with all that is. I am God. We're going to consciously co-create how He meant us to do that. He sent us and meant us to do and be for Him. That's all we're doing anyway in this great dream. The dreamer and the dream are one. The dreamer's greater than the dream. We are the dreamers, so we're greater than our dream. And we will construct our dream any damn well we please. And here we go. It is to the pruning shears of revision that we owe our prime fruit. Man and his past are one continuous structure. This structure contains all of the past which has been conserved and still operates below the threshold of his senses to influence the present and the future of his life. The whole is carrying all of its contents with it. Any alteration of content will result in an alteration in the present and the future. Any change here is going to change not only the present, but also the future. The first act of correction or cure is always revise. If the past can be recreated into the present, which she did on the swing, she recreated her past, and she landed safely on both her feet, brought her mommy over to watch her. Success. Pain gone. Pain gone here. Pain gone here. Pain gone here because of what she did here. If the past can be recreated into the present, so can the revised past. And thus the revised past appears within the very heart of her present life. Not fate, but a revised past brought her good fortune. This will free you. This is, I think, one of the most important pieces in all of Neville's work. Revision. If you're going to get anything down, get this one thing down. Makes me emotional. Not only because of my own challenges, but because I know that you're ready for this. You are ready. And I just want to be part of what's delivering the message. So we can lift. Okay. This is amazing, man. Make results and accomplishment the critical test of true imagination, and your confidence in the power of imagination to create reality will grow gradually from your experiments with revision confronted by experience. Very amazing sentence. Oh my gosh. Make results and accomplishment the crucial test of true imagination, and your confidence in the power of imagination to create reality will grow gradually from your experiments with revision confronted by experience. Only by this process of experiment can you realize the potential power of your awakened and controlled imagination. How much do you owe my master? He said, 100 measures of oil. And he said to him, take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. This parable of the unjust steward urges us to mentally falsify the facts of life, to alter a theme already in being. By means of such imaginative falsehoods, a man acquires friends. As each day falls, mentally revise the facts of life and make them conform to events well worthy of recall. That's just that simple. Make the day something you want to remember, not something you have to remember or you resent or you regret remembering. Make it worthy of recall. What would have happened if you wanted to be worthy of recall? As each day falls, mentally revise the facts of life and make them conform to events well worthy of recall. Tomorrow we'll take up the altered pattern and go forward until at length it is realized on the height of attainment. The reader will find it worthwhile to follow these clues, imaginal constructions of scenes implying the wish fulfilled, and imaginative participation in these scenes until tones of reality are reached. We are dealing with the secret of imagining, in which man is seen awakening into a world completely subject to his imaginative power. Man can understand recurrence of events well enough, the building of a world from images supplied by memory, things remaining as they are. Man can understand recurrence of events well enough, things remaining as they are. This gives him a sense of security in the stability of things. However, the presence within him of a power which awakens and becomes what it wills, radically changing its form, its environment, and the circumstances of life, inspires in him a feeling of insecurity, a dreadful fear of the future. Now, it is high time to awake out of sleep and put an end to all the unlovely creations of sleeping man. Revise each day. Let your strong imagination turn the great wheel backward until Troy unburn. Excuse me. I definitely, have a tendency in this material to get emotionally with it. It's as if I'm trying. It's as if I'm not trying. I'm actually becoming the information. I'm becoming the information when I'm conveying it to you. I'm trying to land it. And to land it, sometimes the emotion is necessary. I want to land it so well that you actually viscerally, emotionally accept it and just try it. Just try and put it to use. This is by far one of the most important chapters. Whatever you do, you must listen to this again and again, or get the book and read it over and over and over, and then just try it. How long did she take when she got on the swing in her mind? How long did she take just to be able to get to being a child again in her memory? How long did that take? How long will you persist? Will you try it once? Will you try it twice and give up? This doesn't work. Why is everybody else good at this but me? Is that going to be your song? I hope not. Because it is doable. You can do this. This is by far one of the most important chapters, the last time I'll say it, that you could come across in all of this material. It must be tried, used, and you must be a professional at this. You must be good at this. You must, at least if anything in all this work, do this part, the revision, because it will free you from those shackles of the supposed past where you feel shackled up and held captive. This guy's a doozy. But you change that from this point of perspective when you revise. That gets rid of those, changes them. Therefore, this changes. Therefore, this changes. Therefore, your practice of making an impression starts to become easier. These blocks aren't stymieing up your production of this whole process. These blocks, whatever they are as kids, some of them were, in her case, was a painful back. The way she landed off the swing. But then she saw she did it successfully. Even an event like that can have such an impact on one's entire life. But where does it exist in her present? Only in this little bubble right here. And then right here. She changed it. She changed it here while she was falling asleep. And then boom, success. It disappears here. Successful landing. Her mother even witnesses. Successful landing here. That means in all of her futures, of which there could be many, in his house are many mansions, in all of her futures, successful landing is in her past. In all of her futures, in all those stately mansions, because his works are all done, every one of the pasts that exists in every single self-concept she changes into, all successful, every single one of those are going to have a past where she landed successfully. That's how powerful revision is. So whatever you're changing into here, single to married, you're going to change here from married to with children. You're going to change here from married with children into your new home with your spouse and children. All these are going to have that successful past once you practice revision. You practice revision, it changes everything. Everything changes. It will stay changed. You would have to make a really concerted effort to turn back. Now, I know the chapters turn the wheel backward, but we don't want to turn it back. We don't want to be like Lot's wife. Okay, repeating the opening paragraph. Opening the quote. Oh, let your strong imagination turn the great wheel backward until Troy unburn. See, now you can see what that means. All life is, throughout the ages, nothing but the continuing solution of a continuous synthetic problem. H.G. Wells. All right. Man, that was a great chapter. Amazing chapter. What was your favorite part? We'll see you in the next chapter.